Hello, everyone, and welcome to the On Air podcast with your hosts, Stephen Hudson, Paul Flaherty, and David Gall. The On Air podcast is the official podcast for Geek Dimensions and everyone living a geek's life. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Geek Dimensions On Air podcast for March 20th, 2014. I will get that
so
bit out. I know. I lose track.
The heck was that?
Yeah. I'm your host, Stephen Hodson, and I'm joined, as always, by Paul Flaherty down there in Alabama. Actually, we got two Alabamians. Is that how you say it, Paul? Alabamians?
I wouldn't know. I'm Irish.
Oh, okay.
Close enough.
Close enough. And that nice deep tone was David Gall, who is now our new co-host. Official joining of the family.
Golf clap.
Hello, everybody.
As you will also have been able to tell by our new intros.
We have new intros?
Yes, we have new intros.
Why didn't we hear the intros?
Because I want to keep it a surprise. It'll give you reasons to actually listen to the show for a change. Oh, God. And Paul, do you remember back, I guess it's been about 2-3 shows now, Flappy Birds getting
Yes. It's my opinion on Flappy Birds was it would be like so many aging rock stars. We're retiring. We're back. We're retiring. Oh, just one more concert because we need the money. We're retiring. We're back. And, and then they'll die and there'll be like 27 unreleased albums come out.
So what you're telling me is this is the Flappy Bird reunion tour?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number one.
Here's the thing. Do you remember, we were in Bent one night, and was it you that found that link to the multiplayer Flappy Birds?
Flappy Party. It is bird genocide on a mass scale. Just people diving into the first pipe. But it's completely multiplayer.
It's kind of kinky.
No, it does. It does. But basically, you can see everybody's. You can see everybody's bird at this Flappy Party. Yes, and it's just hilarious. I mean, that's all there really.
Yeah, we were going after Cathalpa. I think was the record we were looking at doing some crucifixion to. Before we get going, I think this is because as you know, I do a podcast with Paul before this one. And he was telling me about an issue you had with a client that I think DeGaulle will absolutely.
Yeah, there was a reason we didn't mention this on air because my client might have heard the podcast. Yeah. But as an IT and marketing consultant, I get paid a fairly pretty penny to tell people how to look after their networks. Not necessarily do the work. It's the joy of being a consultant. You get to tell people what to do. And there goes. Let me just disconnect the tablet there. And a couple of weeks back, I told one of my clients that they needed to replace the UPS, the power supply, the backup power supply on their server, and they didn't listen. And subsequently, they had 3 power outages, which the server barely managed to return from. And then yesterday, they had another power outage, catastrophic power outage. While the server was not just doing its thing, but mid backups. And yeah, let's just say the Flappy Bird hit the fan.
Absolutely.
But I thought you could, being an IT person, David, that you could just identify with that just whole hog.
Well, that is an interesting call the next morning. Absolutely.
Oh, not just an interesting call, but like the best part of it was like they immediately ran out and bought a new power supply, and I'm like,
way too late.
It's a bit late now, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes they forget why they pay you.
They had like major data loss, and the problem with a lot of clients, some of my clients are larger, some of them are smaller offices, but they're high end practices in terms of the medical profession. They're doing a lot of aesthetic work and stuff like that. So these are where people come in and they pay a big buck, and generally they're not even accepting lots of different types of insurance. There's a lot of just cash being handed here. They can't afford to have their stuff go down. But they're the worst at like just, you need to replace this. And that thing will keep going until it is destroyed. And then it'll be replaced and it'll be a panic, even though there's like 12 emails from me saying, this needs to be replaced. And it's just, you know what? At the end of the day, I suppose I shouldn't complain, because when the crap really does hit the fan, it means a lot more money for me. But, that's
it does. And it's tough to support somebody whose downtime means more for them and is more of a financial loss than the cost of the equipment. That is always, it's always tricky. But at the very least, the upside is now they realize that they might want to listen to their IT guy when he has certain concerns.
I've been down this road with other clients before, and sometimes they just never learn. And it's funny, the range of clients you get and the sheer sort of dichotomy of experiences you can have. I've got some clients that listen to my every word and act upon it immediately, even if it's not something that's needed. Like, I'll say, within the next year, we should consider doing this for going forward. And then they will be all like, okay, let's just make that happen now. And then I have some clients who are like, I will badger for like 2 years to get the littlest thing done, and it will not be done until everything is destroyed. But cautionary tale, folks. I'm assuming that if you're listening to this podcast, you do run a business, that you do understand and value your IT professionals. And if you learn nothing from this today, listen to them. At the very least, just give them a six-pack at the end of the day for their troubles. Today was awesome.
Screw Secretary Day. Give it the I want an IT day.
Whoa! What are you suggesting, Hudson? A new national holiday? Screw Secretary Day?
Yay! Speaking of secretaries, David, you've got one in here. Your what the fuck WTF article of the week.
Yeah, you got a secretary?
No, not right now. Unless dogs count, I've got a few of those. But so this was an interesting article.
Some would now, Hudson. That's just sexist.
I know.
So this article was kind of funny. It was basically mentioning all of those weird URLs that you'll see in all those bad NBC shows or those Law and Order reruns. Basically, it was a Gizmodo article where they tracked down the owner and found that they were all owned by NBC. So such classics as nicebooby.net or cocojugs.com or the classic upyourbutt.net all redirect to NBC. And in fact, you can actually go to these if you do, for instance, here's animalloveclub.com. We'll redirect you to NBC and keep the DNS name up in the URL box. It's great.
Wow, that is awesome. I wonder how that affects their SEO then. Because you got to think there's a lot of duplicate content under duplicate domain names if it's all coming out that way.
It's great. And there's it kind of linked to another blog of some guy who, and I don't understand this at all, but he is cataloging every instance of a PC showing up in Law and Order and then documenting them and telling us about the make and model of the PC. It's ridiculous.
Well, that guy needs to get a Flappy Bird.
Yeah, Flappy Bird. Yeah.
He needs to go to the Flappy party.
I love some of these, though. Some of these URLs are awesome, Upyourbutt.net. Love in a Barnyard. The
Love
next
in a Barnyard.
Aerosmith.
And now here's the one that I didn't understand. Okay, tell me what you think they were going for with ironkitten.com. Ironkitten.com.
Obviously, Iron Man's pet was going to get his own spin-off show.
Oh, it sounds terrible.
Nickelodeon! Calling Nickelodeon!
Crotcheteria. Wow.
Crotcheteria.
Okay, now, I know you haven't...
You can't buy a decent domain name anymore because companies like CNN own everything under the sun because they've used them in ridiculous TV shows.
It's a good point. This is a perfect example. I mean, if you're just trying to start a simple porn site, upyourbutt.net, you can't. You are SOL.
Or you don't even have to be that kinky. You could just be trying to start a friendship matching service for prison inmates. Prisonmate.net.
There you go.
I'm not going to that URL. I thought about it for a second, just a second. There's no way.
I know you haven't had, like we talked about this last week, Paul, and I know you haven't had a chance to check it out yourself, but Popcorn Time hit big last week. Now, for those of you who don't know what Popcorn Time is, it's basically a Netflix interface to BitTorrented movies.
Well, I didn't check it out because the bloody thing closed down.
No, you can still download it. It's on. You have to search GitHub.
But I don't want to download an unsupported product.
It's being forked. How many? David, you downloaded it. You tried it. How many forks are there right now on GitHub?
So this was as of when we were discussing this, which I think was yesterday. But there were about 800 people who had forked it and started their own different versions of it. Some for legal means. The application itself is incredible, and it's backed by it's now backed by Yiffy, who are pretty large in that scene. They're the people that are known for their economical rips.
Video compressors on the.
They are. It is definitely more bandwidth friendly than a movie lover would like. Although some of these, in fact, most of these are in HD. So
that's a very loose definition of HD, there, sir.
No. Okay, let me rephrase that. Not all of these are Yiffy backed. There are some that are, but like the big names, just clicked on a couple at random, and they were all HD. It's definitely a problem. I'm kind of curious to see how this.
Well, it's interesting because it blew up all over the place, all over the web. Was suddenly talking about Popcorn Time, and one of the posts. What was it from? It was
Hold on. All over the web, or all over the tech blogs?
Okay, all over. Yeah, this is a discussion you and I had, David.
Very, very different domains.
Yes,
that's like saying something blew up all over the entire Western Hemisphere of the world, or something
in Newfoundland,
up in a corner of South Wales.
Okay, you're right. It was basically within the tech blogosphere that this thing went like wildfire. And this was something that you and I talked about, David, when you were getting really excited about it, was the fact of what happens if and when this actually bleeds out into the mainstream and becomes the new Netflix. Like, what's the reaction going to be from you're shaking your head. You haven't even tried it, Paul.
I don't have to try it. I know how BitTorrent works.
Oh, no. This is nothing like that. It doesn't involve, transferring files, downloading files. There's no seeding. There's no FTP required to use any of this. You click it. It's easier to use than Netflix. And that's a problem. So I don't understand really what's going to happen with this. But
what does it handle streaming then? Because I'm assuming it streams over the BitTorrent client, over the BitTorrent protocol, right?
Downloads it it just gives you a buffer and you watch it in HD. It's incredible.
Yes, but the problem with that is going to be that the second Joe Ordinary person comes along and clicks on a movie that either A, doesn't come in quick enough, or B, turns out not to have, when it was listed had enough seeders, but now no longer has enough seeders.
It's I think it's removed from the listing.
Well, by whom?
It's programming. I don't know.
I think the result would be just Joe can't watch his movie, in which case Joe can't watch free stuff.
Yeah, but then Joe gets pissed off and Joe goes back to Netflix.
What's Joe going to do? Is Joe going to go to GitHub and complain? But that's okay. Joe can go to GitHub. It seems like, and even in the comment sections of pretty much all of these articles, it makes mention of people who would otherwise legally buy these movies that just don't have access to it because it's region locked. So it kind of, there's a bit of discussion in there I'm curious to see how this is going to work. I'm curious to see
piracy argument that's been around forever, I would buy it, but
yeah, but okay, I use that same argument at one point too with music. Okay, I would buy it, but I don't have this and that. But you want to know something? The moment things like Spotify or RDO or any of those came along, suddenly I could, and I did. I can listen. I listen to all my music via RDO right now or Xbox Music, and it is worth the $9-10 a month, and I don't have to worry about
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that it's the age-old argument. I mean, it's common knowledge. It's been proven that people who download, people who torrent, tend to spend the most amount of money on content outside of that, you know? I mean, in our house here, I mean, we've got Pandora subscriptions, we've got, Jesus, we subscribe to pretty much everything and anything under the sun, you know? I probably wouldn't want to count up how much money is going out the door every month in subscription.
Which is, it's kind of one of the problems that this brings up is, you know, your media nowadays is so fragmented between services. It's kind of a toss up in between which network is going to be able to distribute the shows that you like anyway, you know,
Yeah.
and then to further that, how long are you going to have to wait until you can stream it legally anyway?
Well, that could end up being a ridiculous amount of time, as we well know. And the other side of that too is, and it's probably the side of it that gets under my goat the most is, you know, it used to be a problem where you could go out and you could buy your DVD, or your DVD would be released in Europe first, or your DVD would be released in Japan first, or be released here first, and you'd have to wait 3 months for it to come out elsewhere, right? So, you know, people used to import them, they'd mod chips to beat the region lock, etc., etc. But now you don't even own the content that you pay the money.
No, you license it.
You know,
Yeah.
and there's not a significant reduction in cost. I mean, you know, you still pay, depending on the service, anywhere from $9.99 to, I don't know, $14-15 for a movie. But there's no physical media. The costs to distribute the film have gone down dramatically, but the cost for you to purchase it has remained about the same. But now you have far less rights to the media that you actually purchased. And I think eventually there's going to be a culture shift in that. But it's going to take a few more big companies deciding that, you know what, you no longer have the rights to something you spent $50 on and just coming in and removing it from you before that happens.
It's a pretty common discussion in the gaming world with Steam, because especially because we used to I've still got boxes and boxes of games that with CD keys that I physically have in my hand.
Yep.
And people, they kind of cite it as that doomsday when, well, what if something happens to this user database and I lose all my games, or there's no record of what I've purchased. I don't actually own them. So I'm pretty much SOL unless Steam just decides to do something.
Yeah, or what if Steam goes out of business? Or, you know, you're like like I am, you know, you've got, you know, your emulators for your Commodore 64, you still have like all your tapes and discs, and, you know, you've got, you know, you can still get them online, but for the Commodore 64, but, you know, give it another 10 or 15 years and you'd be looking back at all those classic 32-bit games that you used to play and all those classic 64-bit games that you used to play. But now you can't play them anymore, because even though you bought them, Steam's not around anymore, or Steam doesn't support these things anymore because they're way too old, you know?
Sure,
That's going to be a major pain in the ass, not just from an individual sort of the individual's point of view, but pretty much up until the last 4 or 5 years in gaming history, we've been able to sort of keep the media and the games as sort of a historical record so that we could go back and play them. But there's so much now, both with Steam and on consoles, that like once they turn off the servers.
Well, that was the original intention of GOG, was as a repository for those old games. And now they've gone and, you know, they're branching out now. They're doing new games. They're doing this. They're doing that. But that was originally if you wanted an old game like Doom or even Commander Keen,
Yeah.
you go to GOG.
Yeah, but the problem then as well is like even forgetting those old games, right? Under U.S. copyright law, unless the game has been specifically put into the public
domain,
it's going to be like 100 years before any of these games are available. Like, I mean, if you think about it, last year and this year, was it this year or last year? Was it 2013 or 2014? Or maybe both. Nothing of any media type passed into the public domain in the US because of copyright extensions.
And they want to make it even longer.
They want to make it even longer. Now, and that's including stuff like Sherlock Holmes and crap, which is in the public domain in the UK and other countries.
Here's the thing. Okay.
So here's sort of dichotomy to have exist, you know?
It's keeping with the games, and actually this is kind of an important one too. For years, there's always been this talk with Xbox consoles and PC games being able to play against each other, and it's never happened.
Wouldn't happen.
Now Google, as I said, they want to let Android and iOS gamers play together.
Well, okay, that's kind of fair, because if you have the same game on similar platforms with the same interface, why not? There's no
Definitely.
There's
Even
no
playing field.
There's no technical reason to it. You know, at the end of the day, the servers that are coordinating the multiplayer data or hosting the environment aren't going to care whether it's an iOS or an Android device, as long as the bits that come in correspond to what they're supposed to correspond to. Obviously, same applies in consoles, right? We would love to see this Xbox One versus PS4. I have so many friends that are like playing Ghosts on their machine, and well, I don't know. Is Ghosts on PS4?
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
It probably is, but definitely with the other Call of Duty games on a 360, like most of my friends are PlayStation owners, so they went like PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4 naturally. And they all play the same game, I play the same game, we can't play together. This idea, though, of PC gamers against console gamers, that's
on the PS4.
That's never going to happen.
I wish it would, though, because it would be an absolute stomp.
It would be a slaughter. Every noob on the PC with keyboard and mouse would rape the console players.
Absolutely.
A console controller just cannot compete. And I'm a console gamer, but, you know, I was a long-term PC gamer. It's my preferred platform, but it just doesn't fit into family life, right?
No.
A PC game in the living room with your wife and child. But there's just no comparison. Just the input mechanism alone makes it impossible.
There's all those hacking devices to try and give you mouse and keyboard, and none of them, they just don't quite work because the console joystick has that dead zone in the center that you have to account for. So like that XIM device that you can plug into a 360 and then soon to be an Xbox, they're releasing another one, just never quite felt as naturally. But I remember when Games for Windows Live was first plugged, the idea was to bring everybody together on one multiplayer server, so you'd be able to interface both on the Xbox side of things and the Windows side of things. Yeah. But then it just kind of became another, DRM jerkfest. There's no real rhyme or reason for it to exist anymore. Now it just kind of plagues older games, and games that are even now on Steam still kind of suffer from the unfortunate curse of Games for Windows Live, which, from what I understand, is going away.
Fable.
It's terrible, but yeah, I'd love to be able to play Ghost or some, especially shooters where you have the precision of a mouse against those people.
Well, maybe Amazon's game controller will be the solution.
Yeah, this is a cheap ass piece of plastic, sir.
It does, and Paul mentioned the Amazon Basics stuff earlier, and I've had such terrible experience with those cables. But something as simple as an HDMI cable, I could never rely on from Amazon Basics. So we'll see. To me, it looks like a knockoff 360 controller, but maybe if they put some flair to it,
a few extra buttons, and I'm assuming those few extra buttons will interface with the shall we call it the Amazon Chromecast,
the Amazon in their video service. Absolutely, because on the bottom of the controller are the play, pause, and all the media
my
controls.
TV is going to need more USB ports than it has now that like Chromecast plug, goes in there, Amazon's one will go in there. God knows what else goes in there.
I thought I had a nice TV. Mine's a 1080p Toshiba, but I don't have any USB ports or any of this smart tech or any of this stuff with my TV. I just mostly use it as an external display nowadays.
Still robbed, dude. I went out last year and I bought like a 60-inch 3D Samsung 1080p. And, we got it with all the smart TV features and the whole lot. All I really wanted was one with a couple of USB ports. If, all these plug-in set-top boxes like Chromecast were coming. I mean, what was the point?
Have you watched any 3D movies on this TV?
No, I've done a lot of 3D gaming, but not 3D movies. 3D movies, with the glasses and the whole lot, they just, I don't know. There's just something about the experience. It's not the same as watching 3D in a cinema, which isn't always the greatest either. But where it does own is 3D gaming. I played through the Arkham City, that series of Batman games entirely on 3D on them. Gears of War in 3D on them is awesome. Some games the 3D is not suited to, but
oh, absolutely. If the game is not specifically certified with that NVIDIA 3D Vision, then it's gonna suck. And even the ones that are, like the recent Metro game I tried to play in 3D, and it just never quite looked right. And so it was difficult to look around with and pan around. They didn't quite get the crosshair right. And so it really...
You want to know something that really I don't get? And they're pushing this for games, and it's just driving me absolutely friggin' bonkers, is this Oculus AR, VR, whatever you want to call it, crap that they're pushing out. For everything from medicine to walking on the moon to playing games. What the hell?
It's
the amazing.
Of Lawnmower Man fulfilled.
Oh, give me a rest.
Okay, let me give you a case study then. All right, case study. So picture, say you're into simulation games, all right? Like a racing game or a flight sim. All right, imagine how cool it would be to have your rig in front of you, and you've got, now ideally it wouldn't be the huge box that it is today. It would be more of a thin panel, or even the one that Sony just announced is more like the band from Star Trek than anything else.
That's still a big clunking piece of plastic you got to slap on your head.
It does, but it allows you to have a pretty cool immersive experience.
Plastic on his head so he can record this podcast.
No. The funniest thing I saw in response to this, and we'll come back to this in a minute, but it was a guy showing off the Nintendo VR. It was the Wii held on by a Nintendo band.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he would just stuck the screen to his face.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
Here's the thing I don't get about this, is why anybody is excited about Oculus Rift at all.
I'm not.
As a proof of concept, it's awesome. Okay? Obviously, any geek worth his salt has to be excited by virtual reality, or they don't get to call themselves a geek. But the possibility of Oculus Rift being released in its current form or even anywhere within the next few years is incredibly remote.
They're sending out,
and it might be a competitor. Well, it might be a competitor that comes
kits. Fine, but sending out development kits does not mean you have a product to release.
Not quite. And the tech demos are cool, but they are definitely rudimentary at best. Okay, so say you're not interested in the gaming.
The folks behind Oculus Rift even corrected an NPR radio article recently, made them issue a correction stating that there was no plan. Because the NPR article had said that Oculus Rift would be available within the next 12 months, and they said that they made them issue a correction to state that there was no plans to release it anytime.
It sucks. It does. And I was hoping that the Crystal Code developer kits would be a little bit more, that would have been released by now. They were demoed at E3, and it looks cool. But there's so many applications for it, even outside of the gaming space. I mean, there's an example of it where a guy who went out and filmed with a 360-degree camera. And when you watch these videos back, you can spin around and look at things that you might have missed. And so it kind of adds something different to something so simple, something you kind of take for granted, or the one where you can watch a movie in a virtual movie theater, or just, it definitely is more of a tech demo than an actual, product right now. But there's all sorts of uses for something like that hopefully by the time that this is actually released, we'd see.
What I think they need to do is they need to take it beyond just focusing on your eyes and ears for VR. The interface has to incorporate your whole body.
Your Flappy Bird?
It has to incorporate. Anybody remember the Red Dwarf episode where they went into VR? No? Yes? No? No Red Dwarf fans in the house?
No.
All right, well, go back and watch it. But the thing that I conceptually find jarring about the whole idea of these headsets is that the rest of your body is not involved in what your head is doing. And until that is incorporated, the sensation will never be quite real.
Well, there is that guy that
Now, I would love to play Ghosts where my whole body was immersed.
There is an Omni treadmill.
Yes.
It's a big circle.
I have seen that. And did you see where they set that up? They set up an Omni treadmill, and then they had a dome, and they used projectors to project the game onto the dome in a 270 degree field of view. But what they also had then was they had paintball units built into the dome that would fire shots as the bullets came near you.
That's great.
No, the one I think
grand.
I think the one David and I are thinking about is the one where the guy hooked up the Oculus Rift and one of these tread things and played Skyrim.
Yeah, he was running around. There's other shooters, other zombie games where they put you in a more confined space to make it feel a little bit more immersive. But they're working on it. Like I say, hopefully by the time this is a consumer product, we'll have.
Yeah.
Well, you
need Oculus Rift, something like Kinect on the Xbox One, and an Omni treadmill, and some sort of forced haptic feedback system for your body.
Sure. There was also an interesting article about the military application. The Navy was researching with an Oculus Rift-like device to interface with virtual dashboards and stuff like that to ideally control a boat like that from offshore.
Yeah. But you can be sure that if this does suck, if Senator Rockefeller has his way, they won't be able to get a TLD called .sucks. Okay, look at this.
I'm already, what? He can ban it. I am already sick of all junk mail for these TLDs, right? I mean, in the last week alone, I've gotten offers for everything for my name, .ceo and my name lots of crap,
And in a professional environment, these domain names are worthless. Absolutely worthless. Like,
it's a money grab. Because what happens is that these name server companies, they go around to the big L ones and say, look, if you don't grab this domain with your name in it, .gm, somebody else can come along and take it, and you're screwed because you've got no way to fight back for it. And all it is just a major money grab from major corporations to
Look, if you spend $100,000 to register one of these TLDs, you got to get your money back on it. And that's how. You spam the living crap out of people until enough fools buy the domain. I mean, at this point in time, Google and other search engines make it makes no difference what's at the end of your domain name, whether it's .com, .net, .org, anything, right? It's all about the authority that domain name holds, based on, all the multifaceted aspects of SEO, right? It doesn't, if somebody else owns Paulo Flaherty dickhead, Jesus. Remember when they were giving them away for free and they were like, you have to do this to support our island so it doesn't
support that. support that lovely Caribbean island or wherever the hell it was.
Yeah, I had one and all. I had Sparhawk.tk back in the day after the David Eddings character.
Now, okay, this came up late, and I forgot to put it in the show notes, so I'm going to try and switch things around here. But did you guys see today that Microsoft has released the information? You know how they apparently, the guy that was leaking information to a French blogger about Windows 8 has been arrested?
That's interesting.
Yeah, he's an ex-Microsoft employee. But the way they found him was that because the blogger had a Hotmail account, they went through his mail to track down where this information was coming from.
Okay.
Now, legally, they can do that because it is in their user terms of service.
Yeah, and they own the service.
Exactly. But
and
the uproar...
you're violating their policies by doing so, yeah.
Yeah, but here's the thing. The social media people, the web ethicists are all up in arms over the fact that Microsoft did what they were legally allowed to do and should have done to track this person down and have him arrested.
Shame on him for not using Gmail.
This is a complete non-story, right? Yeah. Do you know why it's a non-story? Because they get all up in arms about Microsoft doing what they should do to protect themselves on their own service, right? But these same people barely bat an eyelid at the whole NSA crap. You don't see them out protesting. You don't see them giving out about it. You don't see them doing anything about that. But Microsoft, oh no!
Microsoft is big and evil, you know. That's just how it is. But it's just completely disillusioned if you believe that you have any shred of privacy on the internet whatsoever. And I don't know. I just don't. I'm never surprised by any of that story. I don't understand that kind of outcry, only because I never expected to have privacy on a Hotmail account anyway.
Well,
or any account for that matter.
Or why people are still actively using a Hotmail account.
Because that's how you sign into Windows now, you silly bugger.
No, you
use Hotmail.
You use
that's a Microsoft
account.
It's a Microsoft account.
And here's what you may not know: you don't actually require an email from Microsoft to sign in Windows. You require to have an email registered with Microsoft, so you can register any email you want as your Microsoft account. It can be your Gmail, it can be your personal domain, and then you can sign in with that. It just has to be registered. I know this because that's how I made accounts for the kids so that they could have their own account on the Xbox without having to set them all up with Microsoft email accounts and the whole lot.
Okay.
All their Gmails as Microsoft accounts.
And while we're giving out on really cool stuff...
No, we're not.
Yes, we are.
10minutemail.com.
Speaking of Microsoft.
Okay.
Cool stuff. Speaking of Microsoft. Mozilla ditches Metro Firefox because only 1,000 people are using... Yeah, only 1,000 people are using development nightly release code that still hasn't made it to beta and never really released to the public.
Okay.
There's a self-defining moment.
To counter that, you Windows 8 lackey. What about the Skype? What about the Skype Windows 8 app? There's similar news now from that side as well.
Balls.
Oh, it does.
Here's the thing: is in a monitor environment with where multitasking is the focus. What is the use of a full screen application like Skype or like a weather app or your email app or your social app?
And this is where the problem comes down. I wrote a post a couple of months back about my forays into attempted productivity living entirely in a tablet environment, right? I basically I said, no computer. I am going to live on my Nexus 7 with a Bluetooth keyboard and try and get all my work and my client work done. And I did that for a month, right? And I tried to find the apps to solve everything. And you know what? It just can't be done, right? It can't be done because of who we are. We are technical people that multitask and require that ability to see lots of information at once and so on and so forth. The thing is that the kind of people we are makes up only a very, very small percentage of actual computer users. By computers, I am spreading the definition to any, personal computing device, right? We make up a very small percentage. There's developers, designers, tinkerers, IT people, and people who have to do it for a living. Everybody else generally really only has one thing open at a time. And that's why the iPad was wildly popular. And that's why it was able to be picked up by, senior citizens who had never used a computer before, because it only did one thing at one time, and it was not very confusing. We are the minority, the people who have multi-screen environments, who have to have a browser open and whatever program whatever client they program in, and an FTP client, and you've got IM open on the side, and you've got your email in the background, and 5 other things at the same time.
Welcome to my desktop.
Most people are the minority by the hugest sense. Like, my wife is very, very tech savvy, right? There's nothing she can't do. But in terms of her day-to-day use of a computer, she's just pretty much like everyone else. She has pretty much one thing open at a time, maybe 2 at most. She could easily get away with the Microsoft style or even a tablet style environment for what she does. And I think that is sort of Microsoft's decision, and is to go with the majority. And that's why the desktop still exists in the background, because they know that the people like us will put up with it and will drop to the desktop. And, they're making concessions now in the next version. You can already set your machine to boot to desktop. But for a lot of people, they just don't need it. They don't want it. They don't care about it. I'm going into Skype now. I'm going to Skype you. Okay, they open Skype. When they're done with Skype, they close Skype. I'm going to look up something on Google. They'll open their browser. They'll do their search. And they close it again. And I see it, not just in my own home, but in my clients too that I support. The people that are on their computers only have the programs open that they require, and that's it. Maybe a browser that they're not supposed to be on. But that's really it. So we are the minority, but the problem that I see with this is that this sort of entertainment consumption centric computing environment does not allow for the likes of us to evolve the way we evolved in computing environments, to become developers and professionals and so on and so forth, because everything is hidden. Developers and programmers are going to become a real scarcity over the next 20 to 25 years. And there's going to be big money in it, because the interest isn't there. Kids are being thought right now that computers are entertainment consumption devices.
Right.
Not.
Yeah, but at the same time, there is a big push within the tech area. Like, you've got Code Academy, you've got a half dozen other places where kids can go to.
Teaching developers how to develop.
No, it's designed to teach kids.
It is, but you go through a Code Academy course or a Khan Academy course in programming, and it's so not. It's just the basics of syntax, and it's not really creating anything of any meaningful value.
But here's the other problem with that. Where are the tools?
Yeah.
Right? When I cut my teeth coding, I learned like assembly on the Commodore 64, right? That's when I cut my teeth coding on the 6501 chip, right? If you wanted to do anything on the Commodore 64 alone, you had to learn BASIC, right? If you wanted to do anything more advanced, you had to learn assembly. But you look at Windows 8 now, you look at any computing environment, except Linux, obviously. They do not ship with coding tools. You know? They don't. Now, it's fair to say that you can go away and you can get trial or free packages of like, you know,
Visual Studio Web.
Visual Studio for the web and the whole lot.
Which has to be on Windows 8.
Yeah, but the problem is that these things you have to download, you have to install, you have to, you know, there's a fair amount of technical knowledge that is already required in order to get these things on your machine and running before you even start. And then, you know, they're still monetary investments.
Sure.
This stuff should just ship. You buy a computer. If we really, really care about the future of computing and developers and getting kids into computing and the whole lot, this stuff should be shipped standard, installed, ready to go on every machine with a full, you know, library tutorial. It's not like Microsoft couldn't afford to do it, right? Even for their own products, right? Full thing just there. Click on it. Learn how to code. Here you are. We'll take you through all these videos and teach kids how to do it. If they really care about it, that's how you do it.
A good example of that is the Raspberry Pi. You boot it up and you boot to the GUI and you're greeted with code, you know, how to code from absolute scratch, you know, using something even simpler than Alice. It's such a great tool. And I love the idea of starting people on web apps or even the most basic of a cell phone app where you can instantly see your results. So you're not having to really there's not a lot of downtime between when you're writing something and when you can actually see the result. And I think that kind of gets people interested in writing something they care about.
Yeah. What you're looking to do is basically have a gateway drug to coding, which is something that gives you functionality, but very, very quickly outputs, you know, content so that you can see your progress. But it's obviously not full featured, but it's enticing enough to make you want to take the next step. And those kids that want to take the next step are going to become the programmers of the future. Okay,
we're getting a little long on time here, so let's finish up with our favorite things of the week. DeGaulle, you mentioned this before when we were in a conversation with Dizzy. The Mini Museum. Tell me about it.
All right, so quickly, it's basically a collection of little pieces of artifacts from around the world. Anything from a mummy wrap to a dinosaur egg, a T-Rex tooth, a dinosaur turd, sand from Dracula's castle or supposed castle, a lunar rock, stuff like that. And it's cast in a little resin like plate. And it's just like a little knick-knack collector's item. I think it's awesome. It's on minimuseum.com.
This is a Kickstarter?
It was previously a Kickstarter, and it was successfully funded, and is now, I guess, in the process of being made.
Sweet. This dude has a really skinny face, but a bad Zach.
Quite the beard.
Huh?
Yeah, the beard. And his name, too, is incredible. Hans Fex.
Hans Fex. Because Hans doesn't give a feck.
Paul, you've got BS Player. And other than meaning bullshit, what is it?
BS Player is so far the best media player that I have found for Android. I've been testing out a lot of media players lately, everything from MX Player, because there is still not a good port of VLC Android. But BS Player is probably the next best thing. It supports pretty much everything out of the box. It's got hardware and software decoding. You can add codecs if there's something that's not there, but so far I have yet to find something that it wouldn't play. Plus, it has the functionality to what you call it. You can connect to your LAN. So if you're on a Windows network or whatever, you can like type in the IP. You can set it up so that it has the IP address of, say, your media server, or even if it's just a Windows 8 machine, any Windows machine that happens to have all your files on it, and give it a username and password, and you can browse the directories and stream your movies and watch them on your tablet. You could consider pairing BS Player with File Manager Pro if you want a little more in terms of the network stuff. File Manager Pro will allow you hook up not just to LANs, but to things like Dropbox and stuff like that. So then you can actually, from your Android device through File Manager Pro, access like movies that you have in Dropbox and play them in VS Player all with a single click. So it's pretty good stuff. It's $6.99 for the paid version. There's also a free version if you don't mind the ads.
Okay.
And there's a link in the show notes.
And on that note, mine has to be, I've been playing a lot of Diablo 3 post 2.0.1 patch, otherwise known as Loot 2.0. And I've been, yeah, whatever.
That's basically what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is. You've been playing it like crazy too as well. I know, DeGaulle. So it's been a lot of fun. Enjoyed it. Didn't enjoy Diablo 3 to begin with because it really sucked and they're nonsense. But they're making good on the game. I really think they are.
So tell me what these changes do, because I bought Diablo 3, but only for the Xbox 360.
Well, okay, I'll speak to it. They completely revised the difficulty system and now have it's a little bit more easy to understand what you're getting yourself into. They kind of re-itemized some gear and made it a little bit more, a little bit easier to understand and completely revamped classes. I mean, the patch notes really are in the hundreds of bullets. Like, for instance, potions are now, there's just one potion and it just restores 60% HP. New Paragon level revamps, that kind of stuff. But it's a fantastic patch and making the X-Pack look pretty good. Very promising.
Revisit, because as I said, I bought it for the Xbox 360, but I haven't played since the Xbox One came out. So
yeah. Okay, on that note, guys, we're going to pull this one to a close because we've gone long. But it's been a good show. Paul, you got anything you want to end off with?
Listen to your IT people. They know there's a reason you pay them.
And where can people find you?
I'm Paul O'Flaherty everywhere except Xbox Live, where I am O'Flaherty Paul.
Ooh. It's like Dizzy. Anyway, and David Gall. D-Gall. You got any final words for the folks?
Paul said it best. Listen to your IT people. And I'm D-Gallzilla on Twitter.
All righty. And on that note, I'm The Real Hodson on Twitter. You can also find Geek Dimensions on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, you name it. Just look for Geek Dimensions. You can also get our subscribe through iTunes. We got now podcastpedia.org and Blueberry as well to go along with iTunes and
Odd Cochran's outfit.
Yeah. But on that note, folks, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, David. Everybody have a good weekend coming up, and we'll see you next week. And until then, remember, keep it geek. You have been listening to the Geek Dimensions On-Air podcast with Stephen Hodson, Paul O'Flaherty, and David Gall. You can send any feedback about this or any of our other episodes to feedback@geekdimensions.com or by leaving a comment on the post. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Google Plus as Geek Dimensions. If you want to subscribe to the show, you can find it on iTunes, Stitcher, Blueberry, and podcastpedia.org, or you can use our RSS feed for the show. The music used in the show is Metro by Sleep Thief. The On-Air podcast is the official podcast of Geek Dimensions and everyone living a geek's life.